Matt Lenihan for Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. Delighted to be joined by Wade Plem. Wade, it's been a while. I think it was actually a KSI back in London when he fought Swans and Ian Netter. That's how long it's been since
Misfits
we've caught
#1? Wow,
Uh-huh.
where it all started, huh? Well, for me anyway, where it all started. So yeah.
We're here, Nate Diaz, Jake Paul,
Yeah.
Dallas. I never quite thought a few years ago when Jake went into this sport that we would get to this point, especially when we get a name like Nate Diaz. What do you make of this event? It's going to be a wild night tomorrow.
Yeah, no chance. You told me, 5 years ago when this whole thing started that Jake, Logan, KSI Deji would be fighting Floyd, Tommy Fury, Nate Diaz, Tyron Woodley, Anderson Silva. No. But I think that this event is such a telling kind of coming full circle to where we're at, because we're in American Airlines Center here in Dallas, Texas. I didn't think that most commissions would have sanctioned any Jake Paul and Nate Diaz fight 5 years ago, but now here we are, and Jake is the favorite by a heavy margin.
Yeah. Do you find that a bit strange, even saying that this is a guy who's sparred with the likes of an Andre Ward, who's one of the best of this era, no matter if people liked his style or not, terrific boxer, great fighter, and he is an underdog against Jake Paul. Do you think other people are overlooking Nate Diaz coming into this fight?
Of course. It's crazy how groupthink works. Once one thing happens and one person says it, then it just snowballs. Boom, 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 boom. Now, there is a reason to have Nate as a bit of an underdog here, and I think that's mainly because of his age and accumulation of fights, but that's also a reason to have him as a favorite here a little bit, right? The accumulation of fights, the experience, like you said, the sparring with Andre Ward, Regis Prograis, he's been in there with real guys, and even just as a fighter, you've watched him zap superior strikers' energy and just make them look average after a bit, bring them to his level, and when you're at his level, his cardio, his continuous volume, he overwhelms you.
Now, nobody knocks Nate Diaz out, and I think that's what's intriguing about this fight, because Jake Paul's very adamant, look, this guy's getting slept. And Jake has done it to, we mentioned the guys, he's done it to like an Anderson Silva.
Put down everyone.
So
put down everybody.
What sort of statement is that from Jake, if he manages to go in there and knock a guy like Nate Diaz out, who is durable, someone who's been to, he's been to them sort of depths in UFC where he's taking them punches, but there's no quitting him, there's that dog in him. What statement would that say if he could knock Nate Diaz out?
It would be a massive statement. It would be a massive statement to people that really understand who Nate Diaz is. Some people will be like, oh, he's supposed to do that. No, he ain't, dude. Conor was supposed to do that, couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Michael Johnson was supposed to do that. Jorge was supposed to do that. Dr. Stoppage. Name the fighter that was supposed to do that and can't. It's different in the boxing realm. Jake's got a lot more tools to work with here, and to be fair, so does Nate. Nate was never a heavy kicker. And people look at Nate as just a grappler, but that's not the case. He was a boxing grappler, and I think his chin will be tested. Jake's going to touch him on the chin. It's just more of how much is it going to take? How much is Jake willing to give up in this fight? Because he's going to have to.
In terms of Jake Paul, though, what does a loss do for him? Coming off the back of the Tommy Fury defeat,
both guys, it's devastating, right? If Jake wins, it's devastating for Nate's MMA prospects, unless it's one of those losses where Nate can be like, I never really lost, because he does that, right? And it's fair to him. Getting beat for 24 minutes in the Leon Edwards fight wobbles him in the last minute, and the only thing you talk about after the fight is how Nate wobbled Leon, right? Versus Nate getting dominated for 24 minutes. But if Nate goes into this fight and loses by knockout, that's a different story, because then you're like, yeah, we might need to wrap it up, But if Jake loses his fight, and especially if he gets knocked out or stopped, you have to hit the big, hard reset button on his boxing stuff. And the KSI fight maybe is still there, but that's probably the only one that's there.
Is that only there if KSI looks good or doesn't get stopped against a guy like Tommy Fury? Because Tommy Fury's going into that, I believe, as favourite. And what do you make of that fight? Seeing what you saw of Tommy, I think it's were saying as well, the pressure on Tommy going into that last fight was
massive,
monumental, because Jake went in there with a nothing to lose. I suppose a nothing to lose, obviously, apart from pride, which there is always pressure. But Tommy had the pressure of the boxing fraternity on his back in that fight, and he still managed to get through. So going into this one, you'd feel had his feet wet on that big stage now. It's in the UK, you know, KSI. What do you think about this matchup? What do you think happens?
Well, one, if Jake loses to Nate, then KSI can lose in whatever fashion and still run that fight. But if Jake beats Nate and KSI gets knocked out cold by Tommy Fury, then it's like, okay, Jake's going to go do the Tommy rematch. But as far as how the fight goes, I don't see KSI getting knocked out. I don't see him, at least not as early as people are thinking, like, oh, Tommy just comes out, double jab, right hand, it's over, we go home. I don't think it's that simple. I think first couple rounds are going to be a little awkward for Tommy, because KSI just has such a belief in his power, his pace, his pressure, that he is going to come out with no fear and look to take Tommy's head off. Like that's the game plan, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to do anything special. They're going to walk forward, look to jab to the body, and throw the overhand. And Tommy's seen it before, but you know he's vulnerable in some cases. But I think outside of the first couple of rounds, Tommy starts to implement his will, starts to slow down the pace of the fight, starts to make it a very jab-heavy boxing contest, and I think he beats him in a decision.
Right, Tyson Fury, Francis Ngannou.
I was just watching the TV behind you. Mike Tyson is in his corner.
He is.
That's crazy.
That's confirmed.
So Mike Tyson is now training Francis Ngannou. Tyson Fury is named after Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
So this is a weird thing. I want to see Mike Tyson and John Fury at the presser.
Well,
it's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, I think John Fury, that will be unbelievable if them two go back and forth. Can you imagine?
Right? Someone put on Twitter, they're like, when John Fury starts talking about his big balls at the presser, and it was the video of Mike Tyson. I think it was the Lennox fight where he had just come out of jail.
Yeah.
He's like, if you do, you love me. Oh my God. But no, I think that I don't really know what Tyson brings to. I mean, of course he brings experience. He brings a wealth of knowledge, been in some of the biggest fights ever, and is always studied the game. But I don't know if he's ever coached anyone. So I don't even know if it really matters. You can't really coach Francis to beat Tyson. He's going to get smoked, but it's fun. I'm going to watch it, and I'm happy for Francis making a lot of money.
It is good for Francis because he's always wanted that payday, and it is nice. How good is it that you get to see a guy who's sort of, you know, he's got that legacy in the UFC and what, you know, his body of work. How good is it to see someone like that finally getting the payday? It's a bit like Amanda Serrano and what Jake's done for her. He's made her a 7-figure fighter.
He bet on himself. And I'm always a big believer in that, and betting on yourself. And even when, it was 80-90% of the MMA community were like, bro, this is the wrong decision. You should not leave the UFC. And in retrospect, you know, yeah, of course, us the fans kind of get screwed out of one of the biggest fights in history with him and John Jones. But for Francis himself, it was the right move. You know, he gets, and I don't know whatever you want to call the move. If it was money, then for sure. If it was just him wanting to, you know, create his own destiny, he got that too. So it's good to see, because in MMA it's a very monopolized kind of the UFC runs it, right? Outside of a couple of fighters that get out of their stuff like Nate, like Francis, you're starting to see it more, but it's what fighters need to do more to create a little bit more competition and a little bit more compensation for themselves.
Well, completely agree with you. It's good to see. Look, Wade, I appreciate your time. Thanks for talking to Boxing Social.
Yeah,
we'll catch up again soon.
Peace.